All right, this is, you ready? Okay, this is going to be, I guess you can call it Future by Design Redux.
That wasn't the intent.
We're starting all over again. We sent out, I guess you can say, survey in terms of what we believe the most basic concepts would be to help everybody, particularly newcomers who might be coming to Sunday, to adjust to the heavy tantric lessons. It's almost impossible to go back. So basically, this is designed for us as if you were transported back in time when we first started our class. And even then, you know, there's some stuff beyond Rama Sharaka and whatnot, because we actually had the benefit of reading this before we even started our first class at FIU. So this is really elementary. And everybody was reading on their own too. All right, so what I'll be doing is whatever I base the reading on, I'll put the source there and I'll compile it into a PowerPoint. Someone made the point that a lot of college students are pressed for time because of their own reading. So cranking out 300-400 page text on metaphysics might not be the best thing for them. So I'll just, when I go through the text, I'll extract what I feel is best from each text. Now, man and bodies, there's several sources you can use for that. There is Annie Besant's 7 Principles of Man, or Man and His Bodies, which is where I got the title from. There's Yogi Ramacharaka, the 14 Principles. But I believe the Yogi Ramacharaka lecture is the best one in terms of basic, really getting down into man and his bodies and the different aspects of our total being. And Ramacharaka, more than anybody else, actually in his teachings, as simple as it is, he lays down the basics and the seeds for much higher aspects of what he's talking about. You can actually hear it in the text as you read. Okay, for those who don't know, most of us we do. Introduction to yoga. Yoga means union with God. I like to say all roads lead to Rome. So you can take the long, winding, never-ending orthodox road, stop on the side and get out, have a restroom break, bathroom break, eat, or you can take the straight and direct esoteric route. So orthodox is exoteric, it's external, it's for the world to see, it's for you to wear your cross, for you to put your bumper sticker on your car. And then the mystic or the hidden esoteric side is the more direct, straight, and narrow path. Either way you go, this road is, as analogy, speaking using analogies, this might be 100,000 lives, this is 1,000 lives. So that's the difference in terms of your final evolution. Yoga and tantric philosophy, of course, the 4 main branches are Hatha, Raja, Nani, and Bhakti Yoga for the basic yogas. And Hatha is body, Raja is mind, Nani is the intellect, and Bhakti is devotion, which I think is a false yoga. Alright, mystic paradox. Miracles. Some say miracles are performed by God for the benefit of man, and on the outside that seems very true. No matter what the miracle is, somebody drowned or supposedly drowned and they were brought back to life, etc., etc. But the deeper truth is miracles are performed by man for the glory of God. So, because whatever it is a human being does in terms of their experience as a miracle, whether they realize it or not, the real power is coming from them. More importantly, it's coming through them. So you can channel the energy or pull the energy up from within yourself completely. That is a pure miracle, true miracle. Or you could be a conduit for outside help. In either case, it's not God doing the work, it's man. So on that note, we have to think about our body and what the body represents. And the body in that sense, if you think about the fact that the miracle is performed by us, and the real power is the power of the absolute, then the body of man becomes a conduit for the absolute. Okay, man It is polar in nature, like all things in the universe, up and down, left and right, high and low. So we have two aspects. We have a physical aspect, what we can see, it's solid, so to speak. And then we have a mental, or you can say a etheric or a hidden aspect that we cannot see. The physical aspect is threefold. So there's three physical parts to us, not just one physical part. That's what we have to understand. The physical body is obvious. Why? Because it's dense. If you try to walk through that wall, I will walk right into the wall and knock myself out. The physical body is physical. Now the confusion comes when we start to go into the astral body. The astral body of man, even though it's a part of you that you use to project, it's a part of you that you experience your deja vus in when you're sleeping, if you're astral traveling, if you can do it consciously or unconsciously, that part of you, even though we can't see it with our physical eyes, it's still physical. Literally, it's physical. Like an atom is physical, like the desk is physical. So the astral body is a physical body. That's what people get lost. I mean, it's a great step for someone to actually even admit the existence of an astral body. That's like a great metaphysical leap. But beyond that, is to actually turn around and say, yeah, but it's still physical. You know, because a lot of people get hung up on the astral body, especially as they start out in metaphysics and they start developing themselves and they find themselves slipping out of the body. Before you know it, they're all over the place and they're going to these wonderful places and they can see things. They start to visit their friends and they see what their friends are thinking about while they're asleep. And oh my God, you know, they start to read people's aura and they get all caught up in that. But that's physical. That means nothing. And then beyond that is the pranic body. Now the pranic body animates the astral and the physical. It is the electricity or the source for life for the astral and physical body. Now when the physical body dies, it immediately goes to the earth. By the way, the more advanced you are, the longer it takes for your body to decompose. This is why yogis burn their body. A really advanced yogi will look alive for at least 30 days. With no oxygen, he won't turn blue and black, won't decay, won't smell anything. Now, when you drop the physical body, you are projected from your physical body, and you're now, say you died in an accident or something. Now you're hovering over your physical body, and you're in the astral body. Now, eventually, this astral body will die. This astral body dies, and then you enter rebirth into the other side. That's why this astral body is purely physical. And this is where ghosts come from. This is hauntings, what you see when you go to hang out at a stupid seance or cemeteries. That's what you will see because it's physical, and that's why you're able to see it. Sometimes even with your physical eyes, some people can see with their physical eyes. But the pranic body is what animates both of them. So those are our physical aspects, and our physical aspects are threefold. Now the other side of us, which is the more important part, is the mental aspects. And the mental aspects are threefold, fourfold. The reason why I say it's fourfold is because these two are kind of one, but I broke it up to make a point. Now our mental aspects are subconscious, conscious, and superconscious mind. But we must understand that mind is not brain. Mind is the energy that lives outside of the brain. The brain is the main receiving instrument for the mind. Mind, and to be honest with you, the receiving instrument for the energy of mind is the chakras. But we'll just say the brain for now. So we have a mental aspect, and that mental aspect, of course, is subconscious, conscious, and superconscious. The subconscious is like a god. Why? Because it obeys the law. If I cut you, you're going to bleed. That's your subconscious mind releasing the blood. You know, if you don't go for food for 2-3 days and you start to get weak, that's the subconscious mind saying, hey, you have not fed the body, therefore I will extract energy from the body from other places, and before you know it, you start to feel weak and withered. The subconscious mind, that aspect of you, is obeying all the laws so that you can function in the physical world without having to think about function in the physical world. Now the superconscious mind also is part of your, I guess you can say, almost godlike aspect. The superconscious is more godlike. But the superconscious is the counterpart to the subconscious, because it too obeys the laws of karma. It doesn't deviate. The only problem is we operate more on the subconscious than we do the superconscious. But it's there, and it works the same way like subconscious. Now, what's in the middle is where the problem is, and that is our conscious mind. Yes?
So, talking about the superconscious, whenever, for instance, you take a look at this paper, and you can remember exactly what's on the page, as a photo.
Yeah, that's subconscious.
Situation.
That's subconscious.
Like actually photographically memorizing things.
That's all subconscious.
Or is there any, the superconscious, what is that?
Well, see, because what was your key word? Memory. See, subconscious is memory. Memory is subconscious mind. Now, how you analyze that's superconscious.
Okay, so whenever you see that, and not only do you remember it, you remember it very well, but you also are able to draw forth and take things from it.
That's the superconscious mind working now. So it's actually set up like a computer. That's how they designed the computer. So the great advances in computer technology was made at Xerox PARC. And at Xerox PARC, they brought all these engineers in, but they also brought in psychologists. And psychologists was trying to tell the engineers, look, this is not, y'all over there playing with that super little box, that's not how the brain works. This is how the brain works. And so they broke up this for the geeks, like thinking with their electronic stuff, and say, look, you have to understand, the conscious mind, when we do something, it gets stored in memory. When we need to recall it, the superconscious brings it into conscious mind, and then the superconscious processes it. So when you look at the computer, it has three main parts. It has processor, RAM, and two forms of memory, right? The processor, two forms of memory, RAM and ROM. So the ROM part, where everything is stored, is your subconscious. And when it gets called into memory, conscious mind, that's your RAM. And then your superconscious mind is the processor. That's what does all the work. But what gets stored in your current moment is the conscious mind. But the conscious mind is the problem, because the conscious mind is what interferes with both the subconscious and the superconscious mind, and the messages that it receives from those who they serve. And they serve your higher aspects, the God aspects of you. Now, the reason why I brought the superconscious mind into play is for the really advanced states of being. So when you get into the very advanced states of being, then you don't operate with a conscious mind. The conscious mind is dead, you've killed it. Because the conscious mind is a part of you, it's your basic self, it's really your lower self. See, the subconscious mind is not your lower self, because you have to eat, you have to breathe, right? So, but when you want to goof off and you don't want to read, or you just want to be lazy, that's really your conscious mind. So when you really advance yourself, this conscious mind gets laid to rest. And you only operate from your superconscious mind. Your conscious mind is alive and kicking because it manages the body that you still have to live in. But you now operate from this state. So this kind of disappears, and you're now a superconscious being. But because you're in constant communication with this, you can, touch something and receive all the information from it. Because that's your superconscious mind working and your subconscious mind working. Because it's all there. You can look up at the ceiling, count all the stupid holes in the tile square immediately and beyond that. Because this is what's really functioning. I normally wouldn't put this there, but only when we get to that level of that discussion of the class. But just to kind of speed things up, this is for the really advanced person. When they were able to raise Kundalini, I would say past the solar plexus center, then this kicks into play.
So why do we have a conscious mind?
Because you create, your conscious mind is this. It functions through this. Your conscious mind is you breaking the laws of karma. Is you deciding to choose free will over freedom. That's the conscious mind.
It's where your ego lies.
Yes, that's your ego in psychological, in Freud speak. So that's why you have it. You chose it. You know, a diva doesn't have a conscious mind. Or an advanced person doesn't have a conscious mind. They are conscious beings, but they don't have that lower self that's fighting them. And no, they just work strictly according to the laws of karma. What needs to be done is done. They don't waste time dilly-dallying and all the foolishness we do and get caught up in all the emotions. And this is also very tied to our emotions too. It's our emotional self. So the astral body is our emotional self, and it's tied to our subconscious mind. The subconscious is not emotional. Soldiers prove that all the time. When they train and they're taught to look past pain and just keep with it. Why? Because your body doesn't really feel pain. You feel pain, but your body doesn't feel pain. You feel it. So those are our mental aspects, and then obviously there are the spiritual aspects, but that's for another class. So right now we're just physical and mental beings, but there are parts of us that are beyond mind. And there are the etheric, or what I like to call cosmic aspects. So man is threefold thus far. He is physical. We know that. His physical counterpart, his physical aspects has three parts: physical, astral, and pranic. Prana is physical. Then he has a mental part, which is physical, is not really physical, but it's not physical, and that's threefold. Then he has his etheric or cosmic counterparts. And all of this is what makes up Tantra. This is where it could become complicated. And starting from low to high, chakras, then we have our etheric bodies, then you have the Nadic system, which creates the indestructible auric body. This is the part of you that is reincarnated 1,000,000 times. And then the mother of all life, source of all energy, Shakti power, Kundalini. So Kundalini, when it comes down to the base of the spine and gets trapped, starts to, in its search to find its original self, creates the Nadic system, which is a web. The Nadic system and that web becomes the indestructible auric body. Then it creates etheric bodies as a result of the system of the web. So the web creates your etheric bodies, and then when they start to crisscross and intersect so many times, then you create chakras. And then we can get deep into that with major, minor, minute, and all the other stuff, which is, again, other subjects. But this is the cosmic aspect of you. This is the real godlike aspect of you. Chakras, which is the receiving, which is where mind is born, the receiving sets of mind, and then the chakras are all built up through the etheric bodies, the Nadic system, and of course Kundalini. So the Nadic system is Kundalini, etheric body is the Nadic system, chakras is made from etheric bodies. So that is our cosmic or our etheric counterparts. So now we have a threefold man: physical, mental, cosmic, or what we call etheric. Your personal tutor. Okay, ignorant is a man despite his intellect who denies the existence of an aura, of something that exists within us, beyond the reaches of the five senses. I don't care how smart you are, how many PhDs you have. Ignorant is the man, despite his intellect, who denies the existence of something beyond what he can see, smell, taste, touch, and hear. Because if you ever been to a funeral, somebody you know, especially if they were close to you, like a friend, and you're staring at that coffin, the first thing you say to yourself is, that's not that person. right? Because the presence of whatever it was that was in that shell is gone, and you immediately feel it when you just look at the coffin. You can when you look at the dead body, you're like, that's not them. So for anybody who denies that, it's got to be ignorant. It's got to be an idiot. You know. Now comes along the man, despite his intellect, low or high, is he who recognizes that there must be something more, even though it's beyond what we can measure. So someone might say, well, do you get vibes when you meet somebody? Yeah, man, I got a really bad vibe from that person. Okay, turn out that person was a very bad person. Maybe it was a criminal or a child molester or whatever. Kids, because they're not burdened and bogged down by their conscious mind, relying on their subconscious and superconscious more than their subconscious than anything, can recognize that. So kids is the best litmus test for just how good or bad a person is, because children know. They're like animals. They can sense things. Right? What are they feeling? They're feeling the aura. They realize there's something emanating from you that just ain't right. Okay? So greater is that man, regardless of his intellect, is the man who can recognize there must be something more. But the greatest of them all is he who realizes the body is trapped inside the bubble of the aura, and the thing we cannot see is the real self. See, this man believes in just the body alone. He's like a scientist, real smart, but he'll tell you God doesn't exist and there's nothing beyond what you cannot see. This person will come along and say, yeah, I can feel things, from people, and they say, yeah, man, there must be an aura. And if they're a metaphysician, they'll say, yes, the aura extends from people, it extends from living things, etc., etc. But the real metaphysician will say, no, there is no aura extending from anybody. The physical part that you can see is the thing that's trapped in the aura. So our auras do not extend beyond our bodies. We are trapped, the physical body is trapped in the bubble of the aura. And that aura, all its counterparts, is the real self. Because think about it. When you die, it's not the aura dying. It's the aura letting go of a physical body that cannot serve any purpose anymore. So the aura drops the body decays, and the aura goes on. You can go on and haunt somebody. Eventually, that part of you will die and then be reborn on the other side. But the aura is the thing that is the real self, the total aura, not just the aura on the shell. I would say that the aura, that the physical body accounts for about 10 to 15% of the total you, probably less than that. Okay? So, yogic philosophy teaches that the cells, built up of cells, each cell containing within it a miniature life. This is really important for people to understand, especially when it comes to trying to control your discipline, or when it's time for you to start abstaining, right? Because yogi development is about abstinence. People think it's abstinence of sex, but it's really abstaining from everything that prolongs the life of the body and continues the life of the body. So when you say pranayama is abstinence. It's abstinence from what?
Movement.
From breath. And that's why it is the strongest yogic development tool. Because you are abstaining from breath. When you fast, some people don't recommend fasting, I do. When you fast, it's the same thing. You're abstaining from the thing that keeps you alive. And it's that abstinence where the real power comes in. So eventually, you've heard Nehemiah say over and over again that when you start doing mantra and pranayama, when you really cross over, bam, you start breathing. And you go into like a quick yogic state. Okay? That means your pranayama is now working. Instead of you having to retain the breath consciously, something happens and bam, you can't breathe. Now you're operating on all the energy that's really inside of you instead of the energy outside of you. So to understand that for us to reach that threshold, when it comes to trying to control ourselves, if we are conscious of the fact that my cells have their own desire, right? So, say my skin might want to go to the beach because my skin loves the feeling of sun, wind, and salt water. That's a life. My skin cells have their own life that they want to live, and because they have their own life that they want to live, along comes all the desires with it. And if you're conscious of that, it gives you greater control, because all of a sudden you know where the urges are coming from. So one of the fastest ways to do it is so simple, it sounds ridiculous, but it really works, is to stop using the word I when it comes to the things that you want. So if you're hungry, don't say I'm hungry, say my body's hungry. Because you can't be hungry. You're God. What you need food for? You got Kundalini, you got prana running all through you. So don't say I'm hungry. Say, man, my body's really thirsty right now. My body's tired. My body's feeling sluggish. My body wants to go to the gym. So whatever physical urges you have, the best way to gain control, real simply, is by stop using the word I. So you can have a separation of you, the real self, from the thing that you is using to gain experience.
That's also what they do in the Marines.
Oh, you were in the military?
Well, yeah, I was in the Air Force.
Oh, okay.
Marines, but I've known them. I've seen how they train and everything, but they'll refer to themselves in the third person.
Yeah.
So they kind of doing the same.
So you need to understand that, and when you understand that each cell has within it its own life, and then when you bring those little cells together, that creates consciousness. That creates consciousness. So I think that's really important to understand when it comes to gaining self-control and discipline. Because you're never going to be successful in yoga until you can control and predetermine all your actions. And you do that by becoming conscious of all the things inside you and all your individual desires and wants. And then also we have to look around and see how the physical bodies of different men show the different degrees of development under mental control. See, he didn't say this. I added this in. But this is Ayurvedic science. When Ramacharaka says that. Because we know that the physical body of man is broken up into three basic types: Kapha, Pitta, Vata. Kapha obviously is tamas. Tamas being the state of inertia, non-movement. Okay, this is your caveman. I call them thumpers. Boom, boom. When they walk heavy. Okay, this is Pitta, Raja, all mental state, all activity. This is going a million miles an hour, right? Can't stop talking, can't stop moving. And then, of course, Vata, air, wind. That's the complete opposite of tamas, and that's the highest spiritual principle. Because really and truly, your physical development kind of reflects in your body, because it was the soul that chose that body to give it experience or limitation. And the limitation that the soul placed on itself will reveal the development of the soul. So I put that in parentheses just to show you that Ramacharaka is a lot of wisdom in his writings, as simple as it is. Now this is your astral body. This is where everybody gets caught up. Right? Because this is where your consciousness is, and this is the part of you that you most identify with, right? So the astral body is merely a fine degree of matter, and it's a vehicle for the soul, just as the physical body that are both discarded at the proper time. In higher metaphysics, I would never say that. You never say the astral body is a vehicle for the soul. But the astral body, like the physical body, disintegrates after the death of the person. That's what people have to realize. The astral body is the best counterpart of the physical body. It may be separated under circumstances. We all know this to be projection. It happens every night when we sleep, when we dream. And ordinarily, consciousness separation is a matter of considerable difficulty, which is true for most people. But in persons of a certain degree of psychical development. The astral body may be detached and often goes on journeys. So all this is astral traveling. When you start to develop yourself, it happens naturally and easily, during sleep. And if you start, obviously there are ways to accelerate it, but the best way is to just let it naturally come. So the astral body is your basic self. That is your consciousness. That is your ego. That is a part of you that exerts its presence the most. When people meet you, what are they meeting? They're meeting the astral body. But this is your enemy, though. This is the part that fights development. That's your negative self, or your basic self. But it's physical. Okay? This is true too. I don't know, y'all should know that. Especially, who's still in school? You still in school? Oh, okay. But I don't know what you had to study, but I remember plenty of times I used to fall asleep thinking about something I had to do, or a project or something, and when I wake up, it's so much clearer, right? Because while you was awake, while you was asleep, you weren't really sleeping. You were wherever you had to go, trying to solve the problem. When you came back to your body, you're like, oh man, and usually you fall asleep with a book on you or something, you just roll over with a book on the bed, and then you have that old myth of sticking the book underneath the pillow and falling asleep with the book on the pillow. I think that's where that comes from. If you fall asleep with the book under your pillow, thinking about that book, you can absorb content from the book in a projected state. Because when you fall asleep, and that's the last thing on your mind, when you project, the body's going to read the book. You might not consciously remember reading it, but if that's what you fell asleep thinking about, trust me, that's what you're going to do when you project.
Is it like psychometry?
Yeah, that is like psychometry, but it's actual psychometry, using the actual senses. And the key now is to make sure you can try and recall it when you come back. That's the hardest part. So that's why I threw that in there. But that's for sure. That happens to everybody. Most people don't know why. Okay, prana. A lot of confusion here. Prana is not the soul, but it's a form of energy used by the soul in its material manifestation. At the end of the day, prana is really just Kundalini. It's Kundalini slowed down to a certain state. But its true source, prana, in its true source, is Kundalini. It's the animating principle of the lower bodies and the higher bodies. But when the soul departs from the physical body, what we call the death, the prana, being no longer under control, ego responds and dies too. So when the physical body dies, bam, it's gone. The astral body eventually dies, bam, that's gone. And then once the astral body dies, it lets go of the prana, and then you enter your state, your cocoon state, to be reborn on the other side, in the etheric realms. Then you live that life, die, and then are reborn physically. But in order for you to be reborn on the etheric planes, your physical body has to go, obviously, but the astral and the prana that was animated in both those two physical bodies has to be let go too. So the pranic body here is we're still talking about everything physical. Nothing advanced like what we've been talking about in class. So this is prana on its basic level, not the prana we're used to discussing on Sundays.
Why is there like a delay between the physical, astral, and then the prana?
Oh, that depends on your karma. Like most of the time, if there is a delay, the delay is going to be between. It's going to be based upon the death of the person. Like, so people who die suddenly and are thrown into shock, then they can prolong they can hold on to their astral body indefinitely. People who are obsessed with something, you can be obsessed with a loved one, like some long love triangle gone bad, or you die and you got unresolved issues. You're gonna hang on to that, and you're gonna use that astral body to feed to feed on that energy that you were obsessed with while you was in your physical body. You know, so whatever unresolved issues you have might extend you hanging on to the astral body and prevent you being reborn into other realms. That's why detachment is so important, and that's why fear of death is so important. And a lot of people don't believe or understand death too. So imagine you've been taught. I mean, the best movie was I See Dead People. What was that?
Sixth Sense.
Sixth Sense. You know, I mean, you know, you're taught to believe in either heaven or hell, or purgatory, or whatever, you know, religious persuasion you have, and then you die, and then you find yourself hanging out at FIU like, shit, I thought I was dead. You know, so you might hold on to that indefinitely because now you're obsessed with trying to figure out what's going on because you had this great lie, you know, been told to you all your life. That's why a lot of times some of the healing that people do on the other side, a lot of times that healing energy is directed at people who've passed on to help accelerate their movement on to the next plane. You know, so whatever pain, psychological pain, that it really extends it to. And then to your karma, a lot of advanced souls, they dump that body real quick and go into that cocoon state real quick. If you're advanced, the more advanced you are, the faster you can drop that. You know, but it all depends on your karma. And the really advanced souls who take a long time for rebirth, for the most part. Unless they have a mission. The rebirth for them is long.
Does cremation speed up the process?
For an advanced person, yeah. But it has nothing to do with your rebirth back onto the physical plane though. It just makes sure that that pranic body and that astral body that's dissolved and released and let go. And also remember, as part of your evolution, you have to account for every single energy you've ever used. You have to transmute it. So when you burn the body, it's just one less luggage or suitcase to carry with you that you have to now account for. Because you burnt it. So you burnt the physical body, you transmuted it with fire. You know, there's rituals for it too because the fire is mystic. You know, fire is physical and etheric. So you are transmuting a lot of negative energy that you placed on those cells, on that prana that has to be released back into the universe for everybody else to use. But you can't give it back to the world discolored and keep it that way. You have to, I guess you can say untaint it, because it's been tainted by you, by how you used it. So sooner or later, you got to account for how you used it. So if somebody cuts you off, somebody cuts you off and you curse them out, that energy that you released, if it's not now 10,000 years, that negative energy has to be accounted for. So that's why you burn the body, because we store a lot of crap in the physical body too, which is where you have diseases and all that. Notice, mental is termed emanations because that's exactly what it is. It's an emanation, okay? So man's mind functions on 3 planes of effort. Notice the word effort. Each plane shaded into the planes of each other, the next higher or the next lower. So the instinctive mind or subconscious mind is most useful to man in this stage of his development. He cannot exist as a physical being without it. If you had to consciously control your digestion, we would all die. If we had to consciously control our heartbeat, we would all die. The exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide, we would die. So the subconscious mind handles all of that quite perfectly too, until we interfere with the conscious mind. Side note, medicine, painkillers. The real purpose of a painkiller, which a lot of people who are into health don't like to use, the purpose of a painkiller is to make sure that we don't interfere with the healing process. So if I cut myself, I'll be in pain. Now, every time I'm in pain, my mind goes to that part of me that's in pain. Every time I direct my mind to it, healing stops. When I detach from that, healing starts again. Because the subconscious mind is going to respond to you. You're still in charge. So every time if you're in pain, every time you wince, and you think, now your mind is drawn to that area of discomfort, the healing is going to stop momentarily. So when you are not thinking about the pain through the painkillers, now the subconscious mind can work freely and accelerate healing. So painkillers are used to accelerate healing, but just it goes to show you the power of the distinctive mind and the communication between the two. Even though most of us we can't control our breathing, etc. and stuff, but we can consciously disrupt healing, which is very important, when it comes to staying healthy. Which is why the body heals the most during sleep. Because the conscious mind, is dead for that time being. So the subconscious comes into full glory, and bam, all your healing takes place while you're sleeping. Okay? So, like it says, he who makes a most valuable servant, that's an example of making the subconscious mind a servant in the case of healing, if he understands it, but woe to him who allows it to remain in control. Many men are a little bit more than animals, that is true. And their minds function almost entirely on the instinctive plane. Man is a two-legged animal. I said without hesitation. Two-legged animal in a suit and a tie. Okay? The lowest phase of our mind is akin to the same work manifested in the plant kingdom, which is true. Okay? The work of our body is performed by this part of the mind. Repair work, replacement, we all know that. Elimination, assimilation, all that is below the plane of the conscious mind. But this is the most important statement here. Man are but little more than animals. And what we do is we use a little intellect we have to feed the animal in us more than the animal can feed itself. Okay, this is true or not true. Feelings belong to our passional and emotional nature, belong to this plane. That's also conscious plane too. But animal desires such as hunger and thirst, sex, love, hatred, envy, this is really more on the conscious plane. That's not completely subconscious. It can be made subconscious through samskaras. But for the most part, this is all conscious mind, because animals don't love, nor do they hate. They just are. To love and to hate is to have the I. It's to I consciousness. Animals don't have I consciousness. Okay? The desire for the physical and the longing for material, that's definitely on the conscious plane, on the subconscious plane. The lust of the flesh, I, the pride of life, are all on that plane. True. But they still shed into each other. I don't know why I use the word queer, but that was a long time ago. The extensive mind is a queer storehouse. It is full of things received from a variety of sources. When you hear the word storehouse, samskaras. That's where it comes from. Heredity is one. This is interesting. You can Google epigenetics. They're finally admitting that now, that we can turn a gene on in one lifetime as opposed to 50 lifetimes. Seed sown at the time of the primal impulse. This is both positive and negative, because you have positive and negative samskaras. So when they say seed sown at the time of the primal impulse, that was when man was in his lowest stage of evolution. So that's why the term primal impulse, which is basically the first elementary aspects of life. And other things received from the intellect, including suggestions from others, yes, as well as thought waves sent out from the minds of others. You'd be surprised how many people are easily influenced by other people's thoughts. Right now it's 4 of us in this room, but there's really 5, and the 5th person is the one that we created by being together. Now, the person that we created by being together is not influencing all of us. But that person is a combination of all of us. You see? So, when we walk out of here, keep in mind we've just influenced each other. When we go home and watch TV, we're influenced, you've been influenced by that. Again, that's thought waves sent out from a television. Same thing with radio. So every contact with a person, you bring yourself into contact with their thoughts, and you can easily be influenced. When you start to guard your thoughts, you'd be surprised. When you start to guard your thoughts, and you can really steal your own bunny rabbit thoughts, and just all over the place, you'd be surprised just what you can hear in terms of what everybody else is thinking. Because your mind is so still, you realize that when something enters, it wasn't you. But that never happens until you can still your own mind. And then you can look around and see where it's coming from. Sometimes it's not necessarily in the room, it could be somebody thinking about you. And you pick up the phone and, oh man, I was just thinking about you. Yeah, it's true. They were really just thinking about you, they sent a thought directly to you, and so now you want to call them. That happens, it's good and bad too. All sorts of foolishness and wisdom is there too.
Could that be stronger with certain people than with others?
Of course.
So like
that connection could be strengthened by you or the other person constantly thinking about each other. It could be strengthened by karma. It could already be strong by karma without you even knowing. Like there could be a past life connection. There could be the strength of it could be from the life how you're going to live together in terms of the connection you have together. Let's say you can have a student-teacher relationship, right? You could just meet the teacher, right? But the teacher might be there in your life for the next 10, 15 years. But the strength of that bond was there before you met. So you don't have to wait 5, 6 years into the relationship with that teacher for the strength of that influence to be felt. You see what I'm saying? It's already there. So there are many things that affects that affects just how strong, you can quote unquote feel the presence of another person. It can't really be one thing.
So when another person's feeling pain or anxiety, you can kind of pick up on that too. If that person you're connected to?
Yeah, easily. Yeah, easily. It might wake you up out of sleep. Mm-hmm. When I wake up in the middle of the night for no reason, like at 2 o'clock, I wake up like fresh, like just wake up. I make a note of it, the date, and then most of the time when somebody calls me or something, I hear somebody was sick, somebody rushed to the hospital. I had no idea, and I check my calendar, my bed calendar, and I'm like, oh, no wonder I woke up out of bed, because something was troubling them, and now you woke up because of that. But you don't have to be sleeping. You can be in the middle of taking a test. If you're driving down the road, it doesn't matter. You drive on the road, you're into your music, and bam, you think about somebody, or you think about something. That's not 9 out of 10 times. That's not you. You into your music. You're on the road. You looking at, you're driving, and bam, you get hit across the face by somebody. Where did that random thought come from? It's not a random thought. That person projected their thought to you, or because of your connection to them, you easily received it. You were able to easily receive it. Now remember, there's no space now.
Right.
You have to understand that. There's really no space. So, you might as well be next to that person.
Does it work both ways? Like,
what do you mean?
Meaning, could I be more sensitive to someone else or feeling them, but they be not as sensitive in feeling my stuff?
Yeah, but yes, because their antenna is dull, put it that way. Yeah, they can have a rusty antenna. Now, if they have a rusty antenna, they ain't gonna feel nothing. So when it comes to receptivity, there's the antenna that determines how well any signal is received, and then there's just the strength of that particular signal.
Maybe they can feel it, but misinterpret it entirely.
Or that it could not be into you. It could be a one-way street in that sense. So you can easily feel somebody else, and that person not feel anything in terms of your own anxiety. So yeah, you might be able to pick up on their pain, but they might never be able to pick up on yours. It could be because that connection, that it's just not there. So in terms of the strength of how much energy they're going to receive from you, You have to remember, mind controls everything. So where your mind is, there you are. When you project from your body, that's the first thing you're going to realize. As you think, bam, you're there. So if somebody is not receiving much from you, the question is, how much of their mind presence is directed towards you? If not much of their mind presence is directed towards you, they ain't gonna feel nothing from you. You know, if a lot of your own presence is directed to them, yes. That's why those things can be easily broken if you think about it. I used to have this weird, let me tell you, one time when I first started chanting my mantra, it was the weirdest shit ever. I started chanting, and one day I had a best friend, right? And this crazy dude young boy used to live, I was in college at Miami-Dade, and this young kid was in high school, I think. Might have been in 12th grade. I must have been in my second year in college. And I was young, so we could have been no more than 1 or 2 years apart. He would always come and argue with me about metaphysics and all kind of crazy psychic shit. I think he was kind of loony. I think he was schizophrenic, but I think he was psychic and couldn't control it. So his schizophrenia was out of control, right? So he used to always come and argue with me, And I swear to God, every time I start chanting, 10 minutes into my session, my people, back then we had cell phones, my people would go off. And this dude was obsessed with me. If I back off the chanting, he don't call me. If I start chanting, he blow up my pager. Every single time it would happen. I wasn't thinking about him, but for some reason, we had a connection. For some crazy reason, he was obsessed with me.
He was tuned into you.
He was tuned into me. So I think what used to happen, I think he used to feel that mantra coming off of me. Mm-hmm. And I think because he was probably crazy, it was a mantra of protection too. You know, that's probably why he felt the urge to call. And that's what happened to you when you first started doing yoga too. The people that don't have your best progress or interest at heart are going to be the ones that are going to be immediately attracted to you in the first place.
Because they want to keep you at their level.
Yeah. And your own basic self knows that and is going to use them against you. And then eventually, those people will disappear. You'll never see them again. And then all the people who are the exact opposite, who are going to add to your spiritual path, are going to be guideposts in your spiritual path. Those are the people you're going to start running into. But initially, it's going to be all the people that could possibly hold you down. That's just, you ask anybody who's ever done it.
How do you start to? You can't necessarily cut a connection with somebody because at the end of the day we're all one.
Yeah.
But how can you help to lessen that tuning in to you if you don't want them necessarily to be tuned in? Like you, for example, when you were doing your mantra and he would just try to interrupt you. Is there a way where you could bypass that or not make it?
Yeah, the best thing to do, ironically, is to actually pray for that person. Mm-hmm. And what you can do is you can pray for that person, and then you can actually, you can erect like just send them some healing energy. I would use it via the flame on the person. I would use it on me, of course, myself. Mm-hmm. But as soon as that person came into my mind, instead of saying, get the hell out of my space, I would just imagine a white light coming down on them, raise the violet flame on them, and send healing energy to them. And boom, detach from them. They'll get it. But eventually, you don't want to cut them off in haste or cut them off in anger or hatred, because again, that person's really just you. Yeah, that's just really a part of you. But you still need to stay on your path, and the best thing to do is just send them some healing energy. They'll move on, and it might be the best thing for them. Yeah.
On the opposite end, say you're the one receiving from someone else.
Receiving what? Receiving what?
Like whenever they're in pain or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't want to be constantly interfered with or bothered by that.
Same thing.
Same thing.
Same thing. If you're trying to keep them out of your orbit or your personal space like that, you can still direct positive healing energy to them without making it personal. See, that's the trick to metaphysics. Is is being personal and impersonal too. You know, the true love is impersonal. You know, because impersonal love is love without anything in return. You know, so if you want to cut that person off, you have to learn to love them impersonally and just send that energy to them. You know, it might be harder for some people, it might be easier for some people, you know, depends, you know, you can look at your numerology chart, your astrology chart will tell you, but I never had a problem doing it. You know, we all get caught up, everybody gets caught up, I don't care what they say, everybody's going to get caught up sooner or later, but it's how you manage that, getting out of that web that you entangle yourself in. And I can honestly say, every time I was caught up, it was my home web. I tell you, but you'd be surprised how the universe is yelling and screaming at you to watch yourself. I mean, one day I got in an argument with some girl I was caught up with a long time ago. I was so enraged. I jumped in my car. I was gonna go over to the house. I jumped in my little RX-7 and I turned on the radio. Do you know what song? I swear to God, you can ask me, I told him too, man. You know what song came on? Michael McDonald. Oh, y'all too young for that, huh?
Yeah, help me out with that one.
Yeah.
Michael McDonald, you know what song I'm talking about?
Unbad names?
No, that she's not in love with anymore. Oh, I keep forgetting. We could never be the same again. Yeah. And I turned on the radio, I was like, oh my God. You know? I was like, shit, God is talking to me. That joke, you know, cooled off and went back home. But I swear, you know, I turn on the radio, that's what I hear. I keep forgetting. We're not in love anymore. I keep forgetting things will never be the same. What you getting upset about? It's over with. Leave it alone. Anything else after that, you're looking for trouble. And I bet you, in your own personal life, I bet anybody, you will, if you go back and think, the whole world was telling you, everything was telling you. You drop you get to your car, drop your keys. Okay, why'd you drop your keys? Red light. That's a red light. Telling you to slow down. The other day I was going to get my taxes done, and I got out of the car. I was going to this sorry place down in Ranger, and I was walking, and I dropped my wallet. And it was raining. I looked down at the wallet, told my girlfriend, I said, let's go. We don't belong here. Oh, come on, let's do it. I said, I dropped my wallet, and I know that's a red light. Oh, you're so da-da-da-da. Let's do this. I said, okay. We went in there and sat down for like 2 hours. 9 o'clock came around, we still getting this service. I said, you want to go now? We should have never been there. You know what I'm saying? So something as simple as that or something as very complicated as a relationship is the same thing. The world will scream at you at the top of its lungs. And the only reason why we don't hear it is because we're not listening. Yeah, we don't want to hear it. But there are red and yellow and green lights in everything we do. We just have to have the courage to stop when we see red, slow down when we see yellow, and continue when we see green. And trust that it works. But it does work for you. Try it. And make a note of it. Make a note of it. If you have a diary, you'll see it in your own diary. Alright, mental emanation and the intellect. Again, intellect. Consciousness is the separation of the self or the illusion of separation. This is where the I comes in. Animals do not have I, as intelligent as they are, especially domesticated animals, and particularly dogs, really intelligent dogs. But they don't have the I. You can almost sense it's there. You can almost sense it in the individuality in dogs or domesticated animals. But it's not there yet. And when they cross that threshold, that soul will be born into the soul of a human being, and then the I is born. Up until that point, the I is not born. So in order for us to have true intellect, or anything to have true intellect, the self must be born, and that self comes in separation. Now that's a very deep subject. Okay, this in Tantra is called the evolution of the tattvas, and they go into it really deep in. The book is in my bag. I got the name of the book. But so Arthur Avalon goes into it really nicely in terms of how that separation, that shading out from the we to the I, you know. And he used the analogy of what happens when we wake up. Because when we wake up from a sleep, when we wake up from sleeping, we're not really fully aware. You know, you kind of wake up in a daze, and then, you know, all of a sudden the eye gets fully turned on, and now you're fully aware of you in the bed and everything. And it's it's really deep, because it gets into Kundalini and how Kundalini is quote unquote evolved in the body, at least.
Yeah, serpent power?
No, not the serpent power. It's the Garland of Letters. The Garland of Letters. And it's based on sound. Okay, so without self-consciousness, a creature may know, but only by the aid of self-consciousness is the creature able to say that I know. So it's I am versus it is. I am is man, it is a creature. First sign, a real unfoldment of the fifth principle, intellect, is the dawning of self. We already talked about that. In order to fully understand, let us consider what consciousness really is. Intellect does not equal morality. Western civilization is proof of that. As a matter of fact, it's been the other way around. The more Western, let's just say man in general, because everybody does it now. But the more man developed his consciousness, the more he developed his propensity for violence, and he mastered his techniques of brutality and killing. So, you know, if you think about how far weaponry has advanced compared to the ability to make sure no one on the earth is starving, you know, that gap is as wide as it can be, you know? Okay, so the intellect does not necessarily make the creature a better being in the sense of being good. It is true that an unfolding principle will give an upward tendency in man. Is equally true. So intellect does not equal morality. Okay, now what happens is, notice, when you're an unconscious being, subconscious being, you're a we. There's no self. Then you get into the conscious mind, which is all about me, the ego, right? The I. Now, as you evolve, you come right back to what? To we, because you now see yourself in all things. The difference between you seeing yourself in all things and the animal is you are aware of the I within the we. You know, you're aware that the we is made up of a whole bunch of little I's. That animal cannot see the I in the we. So you are able to see the forest for the trees at the same time. So that's the difference between the superconscious and the conscious. They're both, superconscious and subconscious, they're both we, but the superconscious, you can still see the I within the we, which is pretty interesting. All of us who've been attracted to these lessons, obviously, it's because we have shadings of the spiritual mind dawning upon us. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. You cannot, you can force a horse to, you can bring a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink. So, if those of us who find this attractive to us in any way, it's because we've been there and done that. You know, it's not your first go around. Tendency toward the occult, hunger for the soul, for more light, are indications that the spiritual mind is beginning to shade into our consciousness. Notice the word shade, gradual. Although maybe ages before we awaken to full spiritual consciousness, we know that full spiritual consciousness is raising Kundalini consciously. Okay? It's not, pretending to be all peace and love and bliss. No, it's real. It's raising Kundalini. There's nothing airy-fairy about it. There's nothing, I can't kill the roach because the roach has a life. No, it's none of that. It's, you can grab, you can take control of that energy and do it through your will.
So you're saying those of us who are studying these things, like because we've gone through it before, why is it that, say for example, we were not all born into the same family, but I didn't come across Nehemiah until late in my 20s, or
right. Compared to what?
Compared to like saying, why wasn't I like born into Nehemiah's family, or had a dad who was a yogi like his, and we all just developed together, or?
Oh, because I would think two things. I would think that's because that's where he didn't leave off. Notice, in like as above, so below. So your everyday life almost mirrors your everyday life, 365 days a year, etc., till your day you die, almost mirrors the evolution of the soul. Most of the time, what we do today is what we're going to do tomorrow. True or false? Mm-hmm. Every now and then, we make a hard left turn or right turn and change direction. But after that, it's pretty constant for the most part. That's just the way the world is. So, for him and Al to be born in a family like that, most likely that's probably where they left off in terms of their intensity. But there's no guarantee, because it's like, it was like maybe 5 years, at least 6 or 7 kids. Nehemiah has a big family. Mm-hmm. So out of all the kids they had, it was just him and Al that was really deep into it. So being born in it doesn't necessarily mean anything. And it might not necessarily be the best thing for you. You know, could you take that pressure? You know, he'll tell you, he was born in a monastery. I mean, he'll tell you it was like being born in a monastery.
It could have had the opposite effect.
Yeah, it could have the opposite effect. Your soul say, hey, that's not the best thing for you. You know, you need, you know, what you did up until this point is what you needed to do. Unless you had the opportunity to be exposed by choice and you chose another route. But to be born into it as a child is something you have no control over. So that's something your soul will place on you. Your birth condition is your soul placing that on you, no matter how good or bad it is. When people, I mean, I'm a teacher, so some of these, I see the kids born into really awful conditions. I have to ask myself, damn, why would you do that to yourself as a soul, unless there was a lesson to be learned in the painful life you're living as a little 8-year-old, you know what I'm saying? Go home with no food in your refrigerator, you know? I mean, that's crazy. So your soul, when you look at children, you have to realize that the soul placed that on them. You know, the soul placed that on themselves, so to speak. Because children have no control of their environment. So that's all, you know, up until you're 16, 17, that's real karma. That's karma really working for you. So, yeah, you can't, it's not necessary to compare yourself like that. It doesn't really mean anything. You know, and then what if you were born in a situation like that and you went the total opposite route? What kind of karma is that? Mm-hmm. You know, it might be another 50 lives before you ever get in there. You might be trapped in the church forever. You know, waiting for Jesus to come down for the next 1,000 years. You know, walking around deaf, dumb, and blind. So, yeah, and it's what you can do with it now. Anyway, there's no real catch up. You know, I mean, you know, somebody say you want to open your psychic eye, chant a mantra 50,000 times. Chant it 50,000 times and see what happens. Doesn't matter if you were born in a family from birth or not. If you chant that mantra 50,000 times, it's going to work. And that's all that matters. That's all that matters. Not the family you were born into. Mm-hmm. See, when you start thinking like that, then you set yourself up for kingship. Because now the person who was born into it becomes your God. You see? And that's how royalty is born, you know, the sense that if you're born in a certain condition, you are better persons. You gotta watch out for that. You know, and I'm almost sure that's how humanity gets sucked into that stupid kingship, queenship, rulership thing, you know? Alright, so whatever has come to man, which was good, true religious feeling, etc., harmony, justice, love, mercy, sympathy, all of that is an unfolding spiritual mind. Inspiration. In bold, I don't care what you want to call it, angels, spirits, God talking to you, whatever vision you've had, it all came from within. Yes, we know some people do receive knowledge from outside sources, but for the most part, it all comes from within. It was the voice of the higher self. Okay? Let's see. By development of the spiritual self, man may bring himself into a high relationship and contact with his higher part of his nature, and may thus become possessed of a knowledge of which the intellect has not dared dream. There's only one type of knowledge that the intellect dare not dream of, and that is knowledge of the all knowledge space, the knowledge of the psychic centers. And that's the knowledge that he's talking about. And that's it. So that is man and his many bodies. Again, like each slide or each aspect of the, just prana alone, you can go into, the shading of the intellect as it goes from, and you goes from we to I. That alone that's actually a really nice subject, though, to be honest with you. In the Garden of Letters, very psychological, but I mean, in this book he gets into it. Shakti is stress. You done, right? Yeah, I'm done.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I know because I had it highlighted all inside here, but I think this was the book. Yeah, it was this book. Natural name.
Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Nehemiah had mentioned that a lot of artists or people who are more in tune, they're easily inspired by different, I guess you could say dimensions, or it comes from the lower hells and from the higher etheric realms.
That's true.
You can fine tune that, and you can change your what you're tuned into, so you're tuned into a higher etheric realm, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why so many of the things that we see on television or horror movies or horror novels, it's because they're in tune to a lower plane of existence, right?
That's true.
Okay.
Yeah, you can easily do that.
And you can block it off, right? You don't necessarily want to be influenced by those kind of things.
Yeah, usually what's happening is Kundalini raises two ways: front of the body or the back of the body.
Right.
Man or this society, Kundalini is polarized to actually raise through the front. Now we know that nature seeks the path of least resistance. So the front of the body is actually very easy to raise Kundalini that way. So it naturally rises that way. And the whole culture, whole Western civilization is set up to facilitate that. But that's the left path, or what they call black magic. And because it's so easily, because when you raise Kundalini that way, then it's easier for you to contact the lower hells. So that's what happens naturally. But it's very easy to turn the other direction. Unless you're consciously engaging in those practices, there shouldn't be no problem to cut that off in terms of receiving artistic ideas or any impressions. I don't have an artistic mind. Well, sort of kind of. Well, for engineering I do, but not for true arts, But for problem solving, yeah, and design and stuff, yeah. But I couldn't draw straight out for shit. much as art.
The black magic you mentioned?
Oh, because there's two ways to raise Kundalini. You can raise Kundalini in the front of the body, or you can raise Kundalini in the back of the body through the spine. Because of the chakras are front and body, and front and back of the body.
I get that. I was just wondering what the context was you're talking about, people falling into that view.
Oh, well, it's what we call a left-hand path, and what it is especially with someone like Aleister Crowley, he's famous for doing it, but it's much easier to do it that way, and the results are very rapid. So if I gave you a ritual or technique, and the results are immediate, and before you know, bam, all your psychic centers start to open, but you were raising Kundalini in front of the body, what's the chances of you giving that up and waiting years for it to gradually rise in the back of the body? You know, it's hard to do that once the powers start to come into play. And the biggest temptation is the power you're going to have over people. You know, it's not necessarily seeing through a wall. Who gives a shit about that, you know? But it's manipulating people to do whatever it is you want.
And that comes, glamour comes into play.
Yeah.
Because you make them see what you want.
Yeah, easily. Easy. And the easiest way to manipulate, I mean, is people are easily manipulated as it is. But, you know, when you start, remember, consciousness is on your voice too now. So as you start to psychically develop yourself, when you speak, you are projecting consciousness. And you're projecting strong consciousness over a much weaker consciousness. Before you know it, you know, people, you know, you have everybody in the palm of your hand. Even your bosses, you know, even people who supposed to have, above you.
Yeah, that kind of happened with me whenever I was in the military. I had a boss who was actually direct manager over most of the operations. He like really had some kind of image of me because he started riding his bike to work and all that stuff, doing the same things that I did. And whenever I said something to him about a situation, you know, he didn't really, you know, take the boss role and say, hey, you're not supposed to be talking to me like that. You know, it's like I had some kind of
Were you the only one that was able to exert that kind of influence on him?
oh yeah, he teased and messed with and you know, did all kinds of other stuff to everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
I seem to be the exception.
Yeah, that will happen to you. That will happen to you. See, here it is on page 98. The first emanation, and then he breaks it up into the third stage of developing consciousness, the fourth stage. So, I mean, it gets really nice and deep though. And then bam, the I is born, you know? But we call that the evolution of the tattvas.
I didn't really want to spend my time in the military to make that like my career, you know? And I think he actually played a hand in order to make it practically impossible for me to
To what,
pursue
stay in
that.
the
Yeah,
military?
stay in, you know, past a certain point.
You know, the funny thing about controlling people, the sad thing about it is most people are insecure, right? So because we live in a world that doesn't nurture the self, right? So because most people are insecure, easiest way to control them is to get them talking about themselves. And then once you get them talking about themselves, is to actually admit with them how great they are. So once you get them to start talking about how great they are, and you are there listening about, you know, convincing them how great they are, it's easy to manipulate them. Because they need to be told and massaged and nurtured, you know, because their self-esteem is so low. So once you start to get them talking like that, then it's like, bam. It's like, it's so ridiculous, it's almost unbelievable.
What if you really do feel like somebody's, you know, better than they think of themselves, and you go that direction?
No, if you honestly have a higher, if you actually appreciate somebody better than how they appreciate themselves, that's one thing. But
And then they don't believe it.
yeah, but that has nothing to do with the fact that once you get them talking, you know, and convincing themselves that they are great, so to speak, you know, then it's easier for you to control them.
It depends on your intention.
Well, look at this scenario. What if
Yeah, I didn't save it, but it's alright. I didn't save all the transitions I made, but
what if somebody just kind of like sets something out there and it makes the accusation that you're manipulating and you can't talk to that person?
that you're manipulating them. People don't know what manipulation is. American Idol is manipulation, but you can't tell them that.
Right?
I mean, to manipulate somebody is to get them to do something against their own will.
I'm bringing pizza for you.
Hey, my man bringing pizza. That's what I'm talking about.
Somebody ordered.
What, you got cheese there?
Yeah. Of course. You know, everybody.